school districts on record as saying that they do not have the funding to open up their schools safely. Warwick and Burrillville have come forward saying that they cannot hire enough janitorial staff, that they don't have the money to open safely on September 14th. Do you know at this moment that people signing up for distance learning are not being told the full truth about distance learning in their schools? For instance, in Providence right now, the Virtual Learning Academy is staffed by Edgenuity Inc. teachers, something that the district spent 6 figures on putting students in. It's not distance learning as we knew it in the spring. Did you realize that our districts are not funded to open safely? Right now, Central Falls doesn't have one school nurse. Not one school nurse. Did you know that Central Falls is not the only district that hasn't had their entire state budget passed?
It is safe to go back in the classroom.
It's not.
Get back in the classroom.
It's not.
Dr. Fauci knows more than you. Dr. Scott knows more than you.
Did you know that the Harvard Global Health Institute also said that Rhode Island is not green, should not reopen classrooms?
It's under 2%. Go back. Children should be back in the classroom. Children belong to learn in the
They
classroom.
absolutely do, and it's too bad that our governor did not prioritize getting them back in the classroom.
Dr. Fauci has said it is safe.
Sure, Dr. Fauci is one doctor. There are many public health experts that disagree with Dr. Fauci.
Children belong back in the
They
classroom.
absolutely do.
They don't want to talk about that. Dr. Fauci has said safe.
Sure, Dr. Fauci has also acknowledged that there are neurological disorders that follow children who get diagnosed with COVID.
Governor Raimondo on her Facebook that if you follow the proper procedures,
Rhode Island cannot afford to follow the proper procedures. Rhode Island does not have enough buses to bus students following CDC guidelines. Rhode Island does not have enough janitors to clean the classrooms as often as CDC.
This woman wants to go back with her children.
Great. I'd also like to be back in school. We can't because we can't afford it and it's not safe. It's not safe to go back.
You threw in the towel.
Great. Governor Raimondo did not say that I personally threw in the towel. She said that Warwick threw in the towel. And Governor Raimondo is ignoring the hours worth of work that Warwick did to get HVAC employees to go in and say that their ventilation is not safe. To open safely, Warwick would need 1,000 fans that they cannot afford. Warwick classrooms would need windows that they do not have. Warwick would need janitors that they can't hire, 82, and to date they've had 14 interviews. Warwick is not the only district that cannot afford a safe return to school.
But Warwick already revised their plan and some of the people are going back.
Warwick is not going back to school.
Some of the students are going back.
Great, Warwick is not going back to school.
Well, Burrillville should be going back. Warwick should be back.
Burrillville is not going back to school. Burrillville is voting on it this week. Their superintendent has said that it is not safe for Burrillville students to go back to school.
Why are you against in-classroom learning?
Because it's not safe and I don't want teachers and students to die or pass COVID on to their families.
Rhode Island has died. Dr. Fauci has said it's safe.
Dr. Fauci is one doctor. The Harvard Global Health Institute has said that Rhode Island is not safe to reopen schools. The Harvard Global Health Institute has said that every single county in Rhode Island is not green and should not reopen for in-person learning. Johns Hopkins disagrees with Rhode Island, juking their COVID stats week after week after week and telling us that Rhode Island is green when in fact we are not green. There are 7 municipalities in Rhode Island with over a 10% positive testing rate, which is double the recommended rate for returning to school safely. Rhode Island is not safe or ready to go back to school. Rhode Island cannot afford to follow CDC guidelines that would put us back in school safely. Rhode Island is not ready to go back to school. It would be nice if we could afford a return to school in Rhode Island, but we cannot. The state has not even yet passed our budget that funds our general school funding budget. Schools do not have money to deliver the things that they have promised to parents. Schools cannot transport children safely to school. CDC recommends that buses run at 50% capacity. There are not enough buses in the entire state to bus students to school at 50% capacity. There are not enough bus drivers in the state to bus students with 50% capacity. Governor Raimondo is suggesting that if we just open the window on buses, that we can ignore the CDC guidelines. Governor Raimondo has promised every Rhode Islander that she would never force anybody back into unsafe school buildings. She she's just going to change what that word safe means. The buses will be safe as long as the windows are open. We can ignore what the CDC said about 50% capacity. Students will be safe at 3 feet apart. We can ignore what science has shown us, that the airborne disease travels over 16 feet in our classrooms and other places. Governor Raimondo is ignoring science by telling Rhode Islanders that it's safe to return to school. Governor Raimondo has promised us scientific evidence, and instead she ignores the most recent findings. Most recent studies show that COVID can live as an airborne disease in unventilated indoor spaces, and it can travel over 16 feet. 16 feet. Rhode Island guidelines for schools say that kids should be 3 feet apart when possible. And Dr. Alexander Scott has said, well, it's fine, it's safe because kids are in stable groups. Rhode Island school children are not in stable groups. They leave their classroom and get on buses with other children. They go to our open after school programs. They go to our open athletics programs. They return home to their families, many of whom are working. There is no such thing as a stable pod. There are no stable pods in Rhode Island. Promising that to families is a lie. Promising stable pods to families is a lie. Promising a safe return to families is a lie. There is not money in the state to fund the things that our plans have promised. In our plans, it says students should remain 6 feet apart when possible. It is not possible for students in Rhode Island to stay 6 feet apart. Governor Raimondo hopes that we can all just eat lunch outside. Our students in Central Falls and Providence know that there is not a space to eat outside. That's nice for our families in the suburbs. It does not serve the majority of our students in Rhode Island who attend our urban districts. It is not safe for the majority of children in Rhode Island to go back to school on September 14th, and it is a joke for Governor Raimondo to continue telling us that it is.